We've seen so much talk about how 2026 is going to be the 2016 of the 2020s, but in reality, apparently, it's the 2019, as G2 has not only beat Gen G, causing one of the biggest upsets in LoL esports history, but they did so in such a dominating fashion, not only 3-0ing Gen G, but 6-0ing Korea in this tournament to make sure that Europe finishes ahead of Korea, possibly even with China if they beat BLG in the finals, who that is now their confirmed matchup as of, well, there's just a few minutes left in that game now. Europe could potentially be on top of the world. Granted, for an early tournament in the year, we still have MSI and Worlds to come, but it's the first step potentially on the golden road. However, I know there are a lot of people in my comments that subscribe here that are newer to the esport that were not around in 2019. So I think it's a very important time to fill you in on some historical context, because history is not only repeating itself in terms of G2 doing this, but the manner in which this is happening is unironically very similar to that year as well. Let me flash you back to pre-first stand whenever we were talking about the expectations for G2 in this tournament. This might be Cope. I know I was the same guy that said I don't want to see him at international events, but they were pushed on a domestic level a little bit more this year by squads that feel like they did level up G2 and push their clutch factor in the end. That I could see a world similar to 2019 where, because the domestic play challenges them a little bit more, maybe this is the one that helps them get over that hump and try to get back to a finals. The first and most important thing to me is that G2 on a domestic level did not look like the solidified best team. While G2 2019 definitely did, they were still challenged by Fnatic, being pushed to 5-game series in finals. Their regular season matchups were just insane. Now, they were blowing out everybody else, but it was clear that they had somebody to push them. You look at G2 right now, similar thing, where they came into playoffs in 7th place. I blame the format more than anything there, but you did have teams like K-Corp and Koi really pushing them. I mean, we saw the scrim reports from G2 themselves that they wouldn't scrim KC after a certain point because they were 4-20 against them. So yes, we finally have teams that can challenge the top contenders for Europe, which helps push them into these moments right now. But the bigger point of conversation about 2019, separate from that, because by all means that's a great start and projects very well into the future, is the teams that G2 was beating in 2019. Because there's one region that it wasn't, and that was China. G2 were the Korean killers in 2019. The reason they were able to win first stand, jokingly, is because Team Liquid arguably pulled off a bigger upset over Invictus Gaming, which prevented G2 from having to face the LPL. Let me take a quick pause to divert on that topic real quick. There's a lot of conversation around whether this upset is the biggest upset in the world versus Team Liquid versus IG. I think that's really the only two. Well, maybe you include G2 over RNG from Worlds. That'd be 2018 as well. I personally, granted NA biased, obviously, but I think just given the expectations coming in as well as the performance, the fact that Invictus Gaming was world champions, they were 9-1 in the group stage at MSI, there was zero expectation nor reason to believe that TL would win that series at all. The fact that IG were world champions the year prior, I think gives that series the edge over this one, purely because Gen G, there's always that conversation around the end of the year of them choking. Even though I would argue coming into this tournament and so far in this tournament itself, they were in better form. So maybe from a skill perspective, yes, I would agree this was probably the bigger upset. However, narratively, it's still TLIG from 2019, which again went on to enable G2 to win. Now, fast forward to Worlds in 2019. Again, anytime that G2 in a series is put up against Korea, they held their own. G2 had a very LPL style to them and still kind of does. Maybe that's just the read on this particular series on how they beat Gen G, given what we saw from G2 BLG in their prior series in this tournament. it very much feels like they are an LPL like team fighting team with early game dominance is kind of like the forefront. Even if they're picking scaling comps, they still know how to fight early enough to get those comps ahead. The problem in 2019 and the problem now is that they just can't beat that one particular region who can't beat Korea. It's funny, like there's a triangle that exists here where it's like Europe beats Korea, Korea beats China, China beats Europe. And that was how it was for a good like 3 years, so to speak. But then it kind of fell off as Europe collapsed a little bit. There wasn't as much talent coming up, there were issues and beyond. But if 2019 is possibly going to repeat itself this year, what you're likely going to see here is G2 unfortunately getting clapped in finals. I mean, time will tell. By all means, weirder things have happened. But in 2019, it was G2 going to that World's Finals and getting stomped by FPX and not being able to overcome that hurdle. Now, we have seen this version of G2 take series off of lower LPL teams, like LPL 2 and 3 seeds at international events, but never the 1 seed. It's funny, you look back at Worlds 2019 too, and you see the group stage and how that played out. That was the first, and I believe only time, that Europe, or a Western region as a whole, has ever had all of its teams escape the group stage. Splice, Fnatic, and G2 all made it out, which is wild. And weirdly, like, I'm not saying that's going to happen again this year. Obviously, like, it's different, but like this tournament is going to reshape expectations as we knew them in such a massive way that even though I do expect Gen G and Korea to bounce back, like there is now just going to be this looming kind of cloud over them that we do have to address. I mean, earlier in the week, there was all that shit given to Bayano for the popcorn bucket. Understandably, again, I still think if you're gonna like talk shit to somebody or like call them a choker, you need to say it to their face. But it's wild how time has aged that, or at least the take of it, of like them being chokers and like Gen G being mad about it. It's like, look, it keeps happening. It keeps happening. And now it's earlier in the year where you sit there and are like, okay, is this going to be a problem much earlier on now? Because one of the conversation pieces for Korea is like, oh, it has been like the same groups of talent. They haven't been flowing up fresh new faces as much over the last few years. Diablo being one of the first that we've seen on that front. But you hit these points with generations where it's like when it's been the same group of people for so long, eventually the rest of the world can catch up. They can get reads on you. And then you have to have this shift. So maybe we are in a world potentially where this year could be like a 2018 or 2019, where even in 2019, you had T1 going to semis. In 2018, obviously T1 was struggling that year, but you did have, I think that was Kingzone Dragon X that had their like historic collapse there. I remember Afrika Freaks got beat by Cloud9. Like it was just one of those years I was like, oh, this isn't good. Now, granted, that year we kind of knew that Korea was like a little bit weaker. We had this inkling of it, but we weren't quite sure. This year, there was no sign of that. Like, Gen G just genuinely looked amazing. BFX, I mean, they were notably weaker than Gen G, but, like, this is where we're at, right? Oh, God, this changes the expectations for everything for the entire year. The last thing I want to say about this series, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Monday for an I don't want to overreact, but I want to open this up to the community and talk with you all, because I think that conversation is going to be more interesting than anything else I can say here, and replicating a video tomorrow will be kind of boring. Robert Yip put out a fantastic tweet here. He's coaching with G2 Valorant. He was with Immortals back in the day. And he notes about rookies and what G2 specifically does. Now, granted, not everybody is going to be G2. Like, that's a very important lesson in the history of all this. While Fnatic did make a finals, like, G2 has been the one that for the last, I don't know, decade and a half, so to speak, even throughout the drought, has been the one performing and delivering results for Europe and for the West to have hope that maybe we could possibly contend with Korea or China in some capacity. G2 got criticized for staying with their rookies for a long period of time, but there's 4 important things that they have with them, and that is just great coaching, the ability to give time, the ability to give proper resources, and protect those rookies from some of the social media backlash that can be I mean, we saw it from French fans, from Spanish fans, you name it. Like, people went at Skumon and went at Labrov and have been for a while. But if you give them time and the right resources, it can click. And that's a lesson we need to learn in North America. And one that, like, you look at Sniper from last year as a great example, or Scary Jerry had one split in the LCS, didn't have the right coaching, got subbed out after a single split. Of course, he's not going to develop in any capacity. Now, that's not saying that every rookie is going to become Skumond or beyond. but you have to give them the proper time, the resources, and everything else around it. And we are definitely not doing that in North America. And this G2 build up to this moment should be a very valuable lesson that I hope we learn from. Will we? I don't know. Only time will tell. But man, this excites me for so many different reasons. But the biggest one being, if Europe can keep pushing themselves, regardless of whether G2 wins in the morning or not, I'm not expecting them to. But this Worlds in North America, like Worlds in NA has always been a just absolute monster where the storylines are unbelievable in every way, shape, or form. I could see a world where we get something like that again and North American fans get treated to an insane tournament with a Western hope, because they would be favorites over any Korean or Chinese team here on American soil. It would be absurd. And I cannot wait to see how the rest of this year and even tomorrow plays out, because this flips expectations for LoL esports for the year on their head entirely. Welcome back to 2019, folks. It feels hella good, and hopefully it's not just a one-off thing. Hopefully this can sustain itself for a long period of time.